My name is Emily Waller, and I am an occupational therapy student at Presbyterian College. And today I'm going to be presenting on an occupation that has been very important and formative for me since I was very young. And that occupation is a love for care of pets and animals. I have had animals in my life since I was born. And the presence of animals and pets in my life has really shaped me into the person that I am today. As a toddler, um, I really grew into this occupation, or rather, this is where this occupation was really born for me. So for that reason, I made a point to add a note from each of the tables that we'll talk about in the occupational therapy framework, practice framework book. So starting with context, my support and relationship factors growing up were primarily my mom, and my aunt and grandmother, and they really instilled this love for animals in me that I have today. So growing up surrounded by women who really loved animals definitely um, gave me the roots for this occupation and its importance in my life. As well as environment, my personal factors and context. Like I mentioned, I was primarily raised by my mom, and she really brought me and my siblings up um, with an idea that animals should be respected, and she was great at demonstrating ways to treat animals, how animals should be treated, and that's definitely been something that has been a factor throughout my entire life. But really, at this age, I was very, in terms of personal factors, I was very sensitive and very observant. So having really blatant examples of how animals should be treated and cared for definitely stuck with me. Um, that being said, because I was so sensitive to animals and their feelings, my family dubbed me the animal lover, and I really clung to that role, and I still do, honestly. But especially as a toddler, it was really defining for me to have that role. And as my performance skills for people started to develop, specifically my social skills, um, the content of my social skills really revolved around animals. Um, for example, I refused to play games unless I could be the animal, could play the role of the animal, like in the family. My verbal initiations and questions really revolved around animals, like asking peers, "What's your favorite animal?" or "What kind of animal do you want to be when you grow up?" Um, all of this to say that I was definitely instilled at this age, a toddler, with a deep value for animal welfare and valuing the presence of animals in my life. Moving into my pre-adolescence stages, I began to incorporate pets into my daily routines. So they became performance factors, and they became big personal factors for me during this time period because my first job was actually walking my dog after school, and I would get an allowance and cleaning out cat litter boxes. So that to say that this occupation during this time period of my life kind of went from being a pleasure or leisure occupation to a work or professional occupation. I began to understand that I could actually be compensated or create a career for taking care of animals. So I really, during this time period of my life, really started to investigate and research ways that I could do that. And while I did that, I really developed beliefs of my own about animal representation and advocacy. Moving into my adolescence, I added the role of volunteer at the Burbank Animal Shelter. And during my time at the Burbank Animal Shelter, I gained a lot of education with this environmental context shift. So going from using this occupation, caring for animals, as a pleasure into a work occupation, I really gained a lot of education in terms of animal rights, animal welfare, and workings of animal shelters in the United States. My role at the Burbank Animal Shelter also started at an entry-level role and really grew into more of a managerial role. So I was the assistant director of different programs, and I was training new volunteers and leading orientations for new volunteers. So that shift, that role shift within the actual organization, really adjusted my personal factors and my ability to deal with responsibilities, my leadership abilities, and it adjusted my social interactions revolving this occupation. So whereas my original content surrounding this occupation really looked like asking questions like, what's your favorite animal and what kind of animal do you want to be when you grow up? It really evolved. The content really matured and began to look like educating the public on animal rights and shelter protocol and volunteer opportunities and legislation and advocacy opportunities. During this time, I really grew my love for caring for animals, and I pushed it even deeper into a work category of occupation. So with that, I actually got a lot of opportunity to meet professionals in veterinary medicine field and animal behavior and dog training fields, which is really what my goals were. And that brought me into my adulthood. And something really dramatic actually happened to me during this stage of my life with this occupation. And that was that I had yet another environmental context change. With the education and exposure to people in the veterinary medicine and dog training fields, I actually was exposed to an attitude shift within that population. And it became clear to me that people who are working professionally in this field don't have values and beliefs that necessarily align with what the values and beliefs that I have surrounding this occupation. I was really motivated by animal advocacy and animal rights and welfare. And the more I learned and the more I was exposed to the attitudes of the people who are working in the animal, specifically the veterinary medicine field, the more I felt that pursuing this occupation, caring for animals in a professional sense, was not for me. And that was really jarring. I really had to take a step back from this occupation and kind of reevaluate its role in my life and my role within it. So I actually decided to adjust my position from being a volunteer, being a professional in the animal care field, to being a pet parent instead. So I adopted my cats Junebug and Oliver and my dog Rosie. And with that shift, I definitely felt that my values and beliefs realigned with care of pets and animals and that occupation in my life. now I'm using this occupation rather than it being a work related occupation. It's going back to more of a play and leisure occupation. I get a lot of joy spending time with my cats, and my dog has been a huge motivator to get me out and active. And she almost forces me to have leisure time in the wake of becoming a full-time occupational therapy student. She also has one more time shifted my and shaped the content of my social interactions. So being new to the South Carolina area with a dog has been a huge gift. I have used her as a conversation initiator to help maintain conversations and to help shape the quality of conversations that I'm having with strangers. A lot of my social interactions now come from meeting people at dog parks, and having the knowledge that I have about dogs now from all of my past experience with this occupation is definitely helpful. But I'm a lot happier with the way that this occupation is presenting in my life today. I've also included a slide with my references, just referencing that occupational therapy practice framework book. And that is it.